For over 4 years, the gaming industry has been experiencing a content drought. The world was starved, looking for the next big phenomenon. Which game is going to explode next? Could it be the Finals, or X-Defiant, Marvel Rivals, Spectre Divide, Fragpunk, Splitgate 2 Concord? Among the many releases, one title stood out. Deadlock. It had a massive studio backing it. These guys. And when I heard about the countless pro players swapping over, I knew this game was special. There's just one problem. It's a fucking MOBA. And it's not like I absolutely hate the genre, but when you tell me I have to memorize 168 champions, 9 different objectives, and enough items to write a 400-page encyclopedia, I get a little pissed off. And when I heard about Deadlock and found out it combined MOBA and movement shooter elements, I was like, yeah, I'll probably leave that game alone. But then the buzz started to grow. Pro players, content creators, and streamers were all hyping this game up, calling it the next big thing. Meanwhile, I was getting bored of Apex Legends, so I had to see what this was all about. I set myself a challenge, 30 days to learn everything about the game, get as good as possible, and see if it could change my opinion on MOBAs. How high could I rank? How well would my FPS skills transfer? And most importantly, would I still hate MOBAs after giving this game a real shot? Let's start with day 1. Coming into this game, I had fears I'd faced before when I first played League. I didn't want to memorize 100 different matchups, 100 different items, and like 20 different objectives just to get a grasp of what is going on. That was too much for my caveman brain to handle. And after playing my first game, I was completely right. Unfamiliar abilities cluttered my screen. I had no clue what this thing was doing in the center of the map. And there were so many things to juggle that I almost gave up right then and there, just like I did with League. After my first game, one thing was clear. Half the roster has a fucking nuke that can kill everyone. You have this brown robot that can shoot lasers like Superman, or this assassin that starts breakdancing like a maniac. I didn't know what any of these things did, so I just died to them over and over. It was clear I needed to do some research before I continued playing, so I began to look at a few more guides on YouTube. And then I was left even more confused. I found out there were 3 different objectives, 100 different items, and like 4 different ways to earn money. I had no clue why a game had to be this complicated to understand. Every other game I've played is literally just a point and click with 1 objective and maybe 5 items to learn. It got to a point where I felt like I was studying for a midterm, except it was for a fucking video game. I had seriously thought about quitting multiple times and going back to Apex where things were comfortable and simple. But I began to remember why I decided to start this journey. I no longer found enjoyment in playing Apex. The game was getting stale and there were just way too many problems with the game. So I buckled down, steeled my resolve, and committed to learning everything I could. I began to learn about the jungle camps, the buffs from the mid-boss in Soul Urn. Slowly, I began to piece them together bit by bit. It took me 3 days to fully understand the rules, but now, I could finally play the game with some sort of direction. But it didn't take me long to realize I barely scratched the surface. The abilities were still way too foreign. I didn't know my way around the map. And the items literally made me want to fucking kill myself. I continued to lose, unsurprisingly. It was clear I needed more learning if I wanted to win my first game. In my previous experiences playing competitive games, one of the most helpful ways of learning how to play was to watch a pro player and try to copy everything that is done. Eventually, I found a player called Mikhail S. And after looking at his gameplay, something clicked. The way he moved, the way he acquired and denied souls, the way he used his abilities in ways I had never expected. It was like seeing the game through a new lens. I had no clue this game had combos. Yes, the terminology used in fighting games. With Paradox, you can use your abilities in a way that instantly chunks half your enemy's health. This is me trying it for the first time. Alright, first attempt. So it goes like, I shoot. from a wall now. Boom. Oh, that was pretty easy. Mikhail quickly became my blueprint to improving at the game. I copied everything he did, from how he itemized, how he used his abilities, how he last hit minions. Through copying him, I finally won my first game. That right there was enough to get me to keep playing. At this point, I quickly fell into a routine, and before I knew it, the game I once hated slowly turned into an addiction. It had been years since I was this passionate. It felt like a void was filled deep down, but something was missing. I needed a goal, but at the time of recording, Deadlock doesn't have a rank system. Fortunately enough, I found a separate system online called NecoScore, which assigns a rank based on how well you perform in your games. So I went to check my rank and found out I had placed in bronze. It was really weird because it felt like I was learning a lot, so I thought I would at least be placed in silver. But with my starting point down, I could finally set my goal of platinum. 3 more days went by and I had progressed to silver. Nothing really interesting happened here because I decided to try out a new character and somehow won. Basically got carried on all of my games, but a win's a win. And as I progressed, I began to realize just how much this game reminded me of Overwatch. Remember that brown robot I've talked about twice now? In one of my matches, I saw this motherfucker fly. How does this guy have ult again? Why is this guy flying? Dude, what is that? If that clip confused you, there's another character called Ivy. And when she uses her ultimate, she can fly and any hero in the game can ride her like a fucking dragon. If it's only been a few months and we already have flying robots, it makes me question what the game is going to look like in a year. But as I continued to play, my progress began to slow down. I was losing a lot more, and I had one problem I did not have a solution to. For those unfamiliar, souls are the game's currency. You get stronger the more souls you collect, making it essential to maintain a soul advantage over your opponents. The problem is, game after game I would end the match with the lowest soul count on the team. I was pretty much dead weight, completely useless in team fights, giving the enemies free kills. So once again I turned to pro gameplay to see what I was doing differently. Turns out, the key difference lied in the mid game. After the first tower gets destroyed, the laning phase is over, and the match enters the mid-game. People get more freedom to roam around, team fights occur more frequently, and all the weird objectives start spawning. The problem is, there was so much to do, I had no clue on what was important. During the mid-game, my gameplay was dead set on moving in whatever direction I felt like farting that moment. There was no cause and effect, it was just effect, and effect, and effect, and effect, and oh, I lost. I learned a pretty simple rule. If you're behind on souls, you farm, and if you're ahead, you can take fights. This means farming jungle camps, farming lanes, and not dying at all costs if you're behind. It's a pretty simple rule, but one that worked, and eventually allowed me to climb to the upper ends of silver. I was quite happy because it felt like I finally had some impact on the game. I wasn't the guy that steals all the farm with zero impact anymore. I was one game off gold, so close to the next stage. And then, the game decided to give me 3 of the hardest games in the world. I lost all 3 and I was genuinely losing my shit. It did 800 fucking damage, bro. Are you serious? I blamed my teammates, the matchups, the character balance, pretty much everything except for me. I had no clue how to counter Abrams because he just won't die no matter how much you shoot him, or a haze that can melt your team with the press of a button. Whenever I saw any of these characters, I would just give up because there seemed to be no counterplay. There was still so much I didn't know about Deadlock, and the way I was learning was too slow. I needed a faster way, a shortcut. I wanted someone to just tell me everything I needed to know. Coaching was what I needed. So I loaded up Fiverr and found a coach. We had our first session and identified one key problem: the map. One of the key trademarks of a MOBA is how dynamic and all over the place the game is. 1 second you're peacefully strolling down the street, window shopping and shit, and the next you're jumped by 5 different dudes and hit with a flashbang of fucking chaos. Because of things like this, the map is your greatest asset in telling you what is happening. The general rule I was told was to look at the map every 10 seconds. My problem was that the only time I looked at the map would be during the large team fights or when I'm trying to find jungle camps to farm. There's also another problem. I knew it was impossible to constantly remind myself to look at the map every 10 seconds. So I thought of a genius idea. If I couldn't remind myself to look at the map every 10 seconds, I would just get something else to remind me: an online alarm. Every 10 seconds this sound would play. Every time it went off, I would look at the map. And with some practice, I got in the habit of looking at the map whenever I wasn't doing anything important. But even with that implemented, I was still unable to get to gold. It was slightly different this time because I couldn't pinpoint a particular issue. So I just started learning weird skills in hope that even one would help me rank up. I learned about parrying, different builds, and even practiced a bit of movement. Well, none of it fucking worked. I had hit a wall, and now I was completely out of ideas. What do I do now? Should I just play the game in hopes that one day something will just click? Turns out, the solution was the dumbest thing ever. As you may know, I'm a uni student. One day, classes got cut short, so I got home early and decided to play the game during the afternoon. I won my rank up game, like, immediately. Oh shit, I'm gold now, let's go. Holy fuck, finally. So you're telling me the solution was to play the game at a different time. I fried all 5 of my brain cells. I went through all that trouble learning everything just to realize that this could have all been avoided if I played at an earlier time. And it was even crazier because I won 3 more games after that, bringing me about halfway into gold and only 14 days into the challenge. I decided to play a few more before going to bed, and that next game, I could immediately feel a difference. People were combining ultimates in ways I had no clue existed. People were finally trying to complete objectives like the soul urn and the mid boss. For the first time, I heard somebody speak.
Dash, can you take the urn?
I ended up losing that game, but I took it as a learning experience to improve further. I continued to play, but I soon ran into another problem. If you've played any sort of hero shooter, you would know that there is always one character that takes no skill and is somehow the most annoying thing to deal with. For Deadlock, that character is Haze. Fuck this character, seriously. Look at her fucking head, man. It's fucking moving around like it's a fucking balloon. Haze has one button that will kill your entire team if you don't get out of its range. It was incredibly frustrating to fight against the Haze because I had no clue on how to counter her, and it would lead to this cycle of just dying to the Haze over and over, giving her even more souls, making her stronger, and us dying even more miserably. And what angered me even more is that all she needs to do is press one button for all of that to happen. I had no clue on how to counter her, so I started searching frantically on Reddit for a solution. That's when I began to learn about active items. Active items are like extra abilities you can buy in the shop, and it turns out there are certain active items that completely shut down certain characters. For example, Metal Skin completely counters Haze's ultimate because it blocks bullets and melee attacks, and Decay counters Abrams because healing is such an essential part of his kit. Point is, there is a clear way to counter every hero in the game as long as you buy the right items. You just need to understand each hero deeply. There's just one problem. I don't know what any of the characters do. I've been one-tricking Paradox from the very start. As a result, I decided the next best course of action would be to learn what every single character did. I think it was at this point when I began to lose track of my goal. I had been immersed in having too much fun playing the game, and I even started learning a new character, Viscus. But I was quickly brought back to reality when I realized I had been losing MMR. I needed to lock in and continue my climb. As I continued to play, I began to realize the same set of patterns occurring over and over. For example, when the entire team is in a team fight on one side of the map, there will always be one guy that pushes the lane on the complete opposite side. This is because it takes a long time to rotate over, so the team can get some damage on their towers. And with moments like these, it made me realize just how much depth there is to this game. You can literally predict what the opponent will do like a game of chess. You just have to put the pieces together. I continued to make some progress and now in the middle of gold, but my climb once again came to a stop. In fact, I started going on a loss streak. It was getting to that point where I'd gotten over the initial learning curve, so there were less concepts to learn, and rather I needed to improve my proficiency in the concepts itself. I needed a way to crack down a certain moment in the game and analyze my actions. And then, I realized this game has a replay system. All I need to do is download the replay and I can watch any of my games from 30 days ago. Let me restate that more simply. I don't need to record every fucking game to watch my replays. I could analyze every single game without having it take up 50 gigabytes of space. Watching my gameplay taught me one key lesson. Here's the thing, when you have the option to either grind for souls or push the objective to progress the game, it gets easy to become caught up in the moment and make the mistake of just not playing the objective at all. Here is me, farming like a dumbass even though I had the most souls in the game, while my teammates were basically throwing a party inside the enemy base. Long story short, we lost, and I realized we probably would have won if I had just shown up. So I began to pay more attention to what my team was doing, and suddenly my losing streak stopped. I won 4 games in a row after that, and then I went on another losing streak. This is when the game really fucked me up. And not to turn this video into a rant about Haze, but I swear my hatred for her multiplied after I figured out how to counter her. The real issue? My teammates. Playing on Chinese servers is a whole experience. Not everyone speaks English, so when I type in chat telling them to buy metal skin to counter Haze, some of them think I'm probably telling them to buy some fucking groceries or something. And guess what? Half the team doesn't buy it. My team of geniuses proceeded to feed the Haze over and over until she transformed into a breakdancing death machine that's basically immortal. At that point, I completely understood why MOBA players have a reputation for being toxic. Trying to play the game while attempting to communicate with my team felt like I was slamming my head against a wall made of vibranium squared. And this vicious cycle kept repeating. My win rate was stuck at 50%, and every time I sat down to play, I knew I was walking into a mental breakdown. But I did it anyway, hoping that wall might just budge. But it never did. Time was now running low. I only had 3 days left and I was beginning to feel a little helpless. Everything I tried didn't work, and it felt like none of my efforts mattered. I had put just about 100 hours into the game since the start of the challenge, and I still haven't touched plat a single time. That was when my mind nosedived into negativity. I worked so hard to achieve my goal, one that wasn't even ambitious, but still, I was on the track to failing. I was beginning to think about how I didn't have the talent, and I was just wasting time pondering weird fantasies. I knew there was definitely someone out there that had already achieved plat with even less time than me. And it really made me think, what's the point? What's the point of all of my efforts when someone out there will just throw all of that in the bin? It was like everything I tried did not matter. Maybe I had no talent. Maybe plat was a pipe dream that was beyond my limits. Maybe this was all just a waste of time. But there was a moment when something fun just hit me, right out of nowhere. It was a spark, A spark of realization that reminded me why I decided to start this challenge. It wasn't the achievements that I had fallen in love with. It was the journey. It's the thrilling moments, the satisfaction of learning something new, the intricate strategies behind each creative play, and it's the challenges along the way that amplify the weights of these moments. At its core, this game is fun. Deadlock is fun. Fun enough for me to quit Apex. Fun enough to embrace a genre I once hated. Fun enough to completely change the direction of my YouTube channel. And every time I seem to forget that, it finds a way to come right back to remind me. Somehow I managed to pull through just at the end of the challenge and reach plat. Must be some plot armor, I don't know, but also just as I finished the challenge, ranked came out. You have no idea how stupid this makes me look. Anyways, thanks for watching. Bye.